Ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a unique look into the world of custom motorcycling. We've gathered some of the industry's top builders and fabricators on this stage to show you their skills live and in person. Watch as they chop, grind, and weld their creations into existence right before your very eyes. Feel free to ask questions at any time directly to your host, Pat Patterson. The doors to the shop are open, so pull up a stool, kick back, and welcome to the Grease and Gears Garage.
And clap. I like this. A well-trained audience is an audience I love. Listen, I'm Pat Patterson. I hail from Iowa, Sin Central Garage. But we're here with Grease and Gears Garage. It's something we've put together. We travel around the country with it. Been very fortunate and grateful that the Progressive International Motorcycle Shows have invited us to be on their stage at all 7 stops along their tour this year. We're just some greasy mechanics. We build custom motorcycles. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to create an environment where we could invite people in to see a little bit of a slice of life of what it is custom motorcycle shops actually do, what we do on a day-in, day-out basis. So we invite our friends up, and, you know, when we're in the area, and they begin to show you something they do. Now, we're also Facebook Live in this, so we'll have, you know, we got about 50,000 people this afternoon that are watching us on Facebook Live. So occasionally you'll hear me reference Facebook Live. Don't get nervous. I'm not looking at ghosts. I'm looking at cameras. So, but we've got a special treat today. He's a hometown boy done good. Ohio born, Ohio bred. He is Pat Patterson from Led Sled Customs, and we got Joe. Pat is the brains. His will, his hands. Because I know, look at that. I said Pat Patterson's the brains. I am starstruck because Pat Patterson's a personal hero of mine. He's a legend in the motorcycle industry, and he's famous, and people take pictures of him, so I'm real nervous around him. But Pat does some cool stuff. How many of you have heard of Led Sled Customs before? Yeah, I mean, this guy has been killing it for the longest time. He took a platform of motorcycles that a lot of people at the time were saying, "Oh, those are girl bikes," and I think that Pat Patterson, he'll say this is overstated. You made Sportsters cool. He really did. He allowed Sportsters to finally have a platform where they could be customized and ridden, and allow people to really say, Sportsters are cool. I always have considered them the Corvette of the Harley line. Power to weight ratio, they're really hard to beat with Harley. So why did you decide to do Sportsters? What was it about that particular bike that caught your attention?
Well, in '93, I bought my first bike, my first Sportster, and pretty much it was just all I rode and customized, and I fell in love with it. You know, the speed, the agility, the lightness of it.
Because you'd come off sport bikes, right? Had you been riding sport bikes before that?
My first bike was, what was that, a Suzuki GSE 450?
Right. Not really a sport bike. But
not really that sport, but, you know, whatever. And then I got my first Sportster, and I just kind of, it's what I rode and what I owned. So really, what I did was just customize what I had and just worked with what I had. You know, I didn't really go outside that box, you know, and once I started the shop, I just kind of realized I was just building parts that I've always wanted, you know, and it came to a point where I could build and manufacture, you know, what has been built up today is Led Sled.
Yeah, that sounds like a simple thing, doesn't it? Well, I just build what I wanted, but it really, I mean, you have a sense of style that also is very attractive to others. I know a lot of people, we both do, that just build what they want, and it looks like ass when they get done, right? Nobody else is going to buy that. But you really have developed a parts line that other people wanted. I mean, there wasn't a demand for the parts that you were building, but then you created a demand by being able to show how cool they could be.
When we started customizing Sportsters in 2003, you know, just like with the Sportster hardtail that we came up with, there was never a platform, like you're saying, to develop anything off of, except for just the Sportster bike to begin with. So, just everything we kind of came up with, to a certain extent, was just roughly inventing something that we liked and figuring out a way to mount it, like the hardtail that we came up with in, I think, 05. It was just, hey, let's build something that's cool to where you can keep your serial numbers for the bike, keep insurance simple, and all that. But we need to figure out a way to where a garage builder could do it in his garage. Because, that's where we started, was building in the garage, just like a lot of other people. And we're still just glorified garage builders, really.
But now the way your business is developed is, it was a standard model, started in a garage, you got another place, and now because he spins fenders, makes Invader wheels, has frames, different styles of frames, front ends. So now you've got this huge manufacturing facility in Dayton, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it's much bigger than this stage. Like, pretty much we're climbing over top of CNC machines, working in between them and building them. It's never, some people stop by when they're, out traveling and stuff to see the shop, and it's always cool because they really appreciate it once they see it, but a lot of them say that it's not really what they expect. They expected some big, crazy facility.
To let you know, and I was impressed by it the first time I stopped by to see Pat's shop, because it's down the street from your dad's house, and it's kind of off a weird little dogleg road, and it was an old gas station convenience store, right?
Yeah, when I grew up, there was like a trailer park around it, and it was like a little 5-and-dime candy store. And it kind of, it went out of business forever ago, and I looked for a shop for 2 years, but, there was no money coming in. There was no way to pay bills, so everything was super expensive to move into an industrial park or somewhere fancy. And then just all of a sudden, my dad one day was like, hey, this place up the street's for rent. And I walked in, I'm like, this is perfect.
So that place was probably built in the 50s?
Yeah.
60s, maybe? It's an old building.
I think when I first moved in, the breaker box still had like the screw-in fuses, and there was a inspection sticker in there from 1950-something, and they must not have liked the person that inspected it because it said inspected by bitch. That was the actual card, and I just kind of slid it back in there and left it. That's all been upgraded now, but we still left that card back there.
Well, and I belabor that point because you never got caught up, even though you began to have some great success in terms of developing the parts line and having it become successful, and magazines, and being able to push that during a time when guys were rock stars in the motorcycle industry and had to build these huge facilities. You were A, a good businessman, but B, you were humble about it and said, this is enough. And so they have the basement of this candy store, this wooden building, is where you produce everything, and upstairs is an office and kind of parts, and they do their own apparel up there and everything. So, and I really appreciate that about Led Sled, because it's Jen, your wife, works there. You've got Joe, and Mark used to be with you until he got fired for drinking on the job, but that's a whole nother story. Well, no, that's a lie. He went to play Gimli in Lord of the Rings, and he couldn't afford him anymore. But it is a small group of people. How many folks do you have working at the shop?
Man, that's what's cool about it. I mean, there's 4 of us full time, but throughout, just we have a lot of equipment now, and we've got guys that have been with the shop. They've been with us for 10 years now, that do their own jobs, but when we need something set up or equipment set up, they'll come and set up for jobs or help us program. So, I mean, and that being just people that circle around our group and help out, I mean, you got 12 to 15 people that are just part of it. And
I like to point that out because I think sometimes we have this idea that when a builder of Pat's repute, he just 2 years ago got to build the bike for Progressive Motorcycle Insurance that went on this tour with them. He's a big builder. Everybody knows who Pat Patterson is. But we have this idea that, there's all these people and it's easy and it's clean and you know, but you still work at it. I mean, and you've kept it small on purpose in terms of number of people because you're down there every day watching Joe work.
Well, and it's also quality, you know, just having our hands on every part, you know, as opposed to inventing something and sourcing it out. You know, we're in control of everything that comes out of that shop.
Yeah, so that's nice. American made, Ohio made, more importantly, huh? So, all right, now you're going to show us a lot of things, but we're going to start with fenders. So you get these from Korea. Tell me about...
That's what's even cool about these. There's a company in town that has a contract for the gun machinery in the top of like a Humvee, and they have to cut the roofs out of the Humvees to put the gun turrets in them. And what we do is we buy all their blanks and spin fenders out of them. It's 13 gauge steel, and I just approached them one day. I'm like, what do you guys do with these things? And they're like, well, we take them to scrap yard. So I'm like, well, how about I buy them from you instead of you just scrapping them? And you know, they're perfect thickness for what we do with them.
So they're 13 gauge steel. And walk us through the process of what it takes to make a fender, because you're starting off with a blank piece of flat steel.
Yeah, let's see how
Video
this,
one?
Yeah, let's see how this works. All right, yeah. Can everybody see here?
They got TVs out there.
This is Joe. This is how we start. You pretty much have to put a center hole in it. And then this is a circle shear. It's pretty much a big can opener. We trim the blanks down to size depending on what wooden buck you're spinning it on to get the correct length when you're done. You just kind of let it spin and tighten it a little bit as it goes around, and then it trims it to the size you're going to need. We have a lot of, well, hold on, it's kind of weird. Let's see, roll number 2, and let me see what we got going on here. Can you pause it? Like now?
There it goes. Can you back it up and pause it?
Like, I just want to show the wooden tool, if we can. All right, that's good. Pretty much all these tools, that's a wooden tool. It's maple. It's really hard. They compress even more as you spin on them. This is what we call our stock tool. This is what we use for, say, a Metzler or something that's on, say, a 16-inch rim or a Dunlop tire. Those are usually 6 inches wide. That's what we have here, just to kind of show you guys one variety of what we do. But let's see here. So that's a wooden tool. All these start out as just a big square block that have been pressed together and glued. So we have to trim them and shape them just like, woodworking class back in high school. We get the radius and all that we want, and radius all these tools and create our own tooling for the fenders that we're spinning on.
So, and do you actually do that yourself then?
Yeah, all this is done in-house. So yeah, we shape these tools to where we want them. We've even came up to where we've made tooling to where we can set something next to it and trace it and cut our tools, to the contour of something that's sitting here next to it.
Okay.
So, all right, you can go ahead and... So once this is the correct blank size, and that the blank size also has to be determined by who's spinning it, because like Joe's spinning now, our techniques are a little different. So you may stretch the metal more than the other guy does, so we got to trim the length different to compensate for that, so when you're done you still end up with a 6-inch fender. So this is him just kind of turning it on, and you kind of loosen the chuck up and make sure all your runouts, good, and the blank is spinning true. that 2 or 3?
That was 2.
3. These are called scissor rollers. What you're doing when you're spinning this fender is you're creating pressure with each hand, and it's a really custom feel. The roller, the wheel on the end is spinning on the fender, but with your left hand you're putting pressure on the fender, and you're pushing the fender down to spin the metal and make it contour the shape of the tool. Joe's not liking what he's seeing right there.
Now, when you're doing that, is that is that physically taxing? I mean, is that?
Yeah, it can be, and you've got to watch how hard. We didn't have enough time to show all the techniques of how to mess it up. But it's not something you just grab and take off doing. When I first did it, when we first got this machine, I flew a good friend in from Chicago for the weekend to hang out with me to even teach me how to start spinning, because I couldn't even get my head wrapped around what needed to be done. Joe's pretty much professional at this point on spinning these fenders, so what you're seeing here is somebody doing it that's done this a million times, so it looks really nice and fluent, but you can buckle that metal really easy with too much pressure. And I don't know if you can tell on the end. See when he spins, see how the lip kind of curls back toward the tool? You might see it on this one right here. See how the end of it kind of flips back over? You got to be really careful with that too. It's all technique, and you kind of have to learn the pressures to put on those tools. Now when these are the shorter ones, so they're a little easier. Back in the era of the 240, 300s, 360s, when our blank size is this long, that's what we used to spin constantly. That was a lot of finesse and technique.
Well, and this is where I think a lot of people assume when they buy a fender that it has been just a piece of metal and it went through a machine that stamped it, and you got this stamped fender and it goes out. But I mean, this is becoming almost a lost art in a lot of ways, because that's what happens. I mean, in Asia, they don't spin fenders. They're not spun fenders. They're actually stamped fenders for the most part. They're just stamped. A lot of people stamp metal now. And, this is craftsmanship. We've talked about that. That's Grease and Gears Garage. That's what we want to do. We want to display American craftsmanship and be able to show that people still are doing this kind of stuff. We not only make things in the United States, but we have people that actually make things in the United States with their bare hands. It doesn't get much more bare hands than spinning this fender that way. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he's still just spinning, pressing the metal down. What he's doing right there is he's back rolling, because even though you're spinning it, you still have to lock the metal down to the tool, because if it lifts and doesn't stick to the tool, once again it'll start buckling at the end.
How long does it typically take to, because you're just rolling one half of a fender.
Yeah.
How long does it typically take to do that?
I would say this is roughly 6 minutes.
So
6
minutes. So
yeah.
Basically, to spin a fender, you're looking at 12 minutes to bank both sides.
No.
That's a whole fender. Oh, because you're going to cut it.
It's a half. Well, okay. Let me see what the next one is. We may have to pause it because I'm not really sure. I can't remember. Okay, here we go. Can you pause it really quick? What we have here, that's the bowl when we're done. It kind of looks like a sled or a trash can lid. It's pretty much these right here. We couldn't plasma cut on stage, I guess, because we might burn the place down. But this is what we have when we're done.
It's a large appetizer plate.
Yeah, right? So these are kind of the next steps on how we go about building the fender, just so you can see how the rest of it's made. All right. This is Joe plasma cutting it in half.
You're doing a really good job, Joe.
Being very precise. I like that bandsaw with all the pinstriping on it.
I like it. It's good.
And this is the shop. This is the basement. So you can kind of see just right there. There's a CNC lathe right behind that bandsaw. Right here's the English wheel, MIG welder right here. I mean, there's already a lot in just this little area.
And isn't the coolness of what's come built out?
Okay, so after we cut them in half,
what they build it in.
he'll line them up and tack them up.
We couldn't get out of the shop yet.
We use the MIG welder to tack them up just because it's a little bit easier to hold with one hand and line it up with the other.
Mark was just saying that when he worked at Led Sled, there were some bikes that they built. You didn't think you were going to be able to get out of the shop, that you'd have to move everything to get the bikes out.
Yeah, you'd have to move a lot.
Byron said it's not it's how you actually build everything on top of each other.
That's when I'd go run an errand real quick. I gotta go get metal. You guys do this so we get that bike out. So let's see, after we tack it up, we usually weld them up first, but just letting you guys see the template that we cut them out on.
Like you were answering them.
And once again, we can't plasma cut up here, so we wanted to show you how we radius them also. Due to the hole that we punched at the beginning to center it, once we spin it, that hole is still in the center. So the tool that Joe made, as long as we just stick it on that hole and radius it, he's got different holes there that we can trim that fender at, to where he'll just put it in the correct hole and plasma cut it out.
You came up with that tool? You're
Joe,
a smart,
the jig
smeller. Smart fella.
There you can see some more of the shop over there. There's the bike we're building. There's the frame jig.
It's a lot neater than the last time I was there. Everything's cleaned up. All the tools are put away, it looks like.
Well, we got Jake there now, so he does a lot of...
So you got a Jake.
Yeah, we got
Every
Jake.
shop needs a Jake to put tools away.
Well, I've never really sit and just watched him do this whole thing. It's pretty exciting. All right, so then he cuts that out. Did you do radiusing the end on this one? Next, please. Okay, and on this one, we have templates, but once again, Joe's done this quite a million times. So radiusing it, he can just use a marker and draw it, and then we radius cut the end of it. So at this point, he radius cuts the end. We leave the other end straight, so that way when a guy gets a fender, he's pretty much got an entire 180. So you have enough fender to cut it short, or kind of get the gist of where you want it on your tire to trim it.
This is the Joe show right here, man. Joe, you do fine work making Pat look good. Is Pat at least in the room while this is happening?
Actually, no, I wasn't. Jen's doing the filming. Hey, I was over powder coating these rims.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
True story. I didn't run down to get I was doing work. So then we use the Burr King, clean up the edges, so when a guy gets the fender, it's, all the burrs are off of it. It's cleaned up and straight and nice. Real good, Joe. All right, another thing that's really important, because when we're done, you can see on this fender how we grind the top of the welds down just to get it smooth. Because the welds, obviously, the structure of those two pieces going together. Some people don't like, or I don't know, some people don't have faith in a two-piece fender. But these fenders are very strong and thick. And when we weld them, which we'll show you here in a minute, we make sure that we have the weld all the way through the fender so it penetrates on the other side. So when we grind it smooth, if you grind the weld off on the top and you haven't got full penetration through to the bottom of the metal, you've pretty much just ground off what you did to put it together. And you know, with Harleys having a lot of vibration, or maybe whatever bike you're putting it on, you know, there is a chance of it splitting if it's not welded correctly. So that's really one of the major points of putting these fenders together. You want to weld one of these together and we'll kind of show them.
You want to get the, red screen. Yeah, I got to get you a red screen though.
Oh, I've seen those, but not really with people welding behind them.
Because we don't want to hurt the peoples.
Oh, don't stare at the light is what you're saying?
Yeah, don't stare at the light. It's flash burn. It's not fun. It basically sunburns your eyes. So a lot of guys will close their eyes, attack things. They think their eyelids are thick enough to protect their eyes. It's not. You close your eyes, you'll still burn your cornea. So this reminds me kind of a go-go show, though.
Oh, you finally caught on.
It didn't come back down. The calf's getting bigger. It's not from working out.
Do what?
That was mine. Thank you. Yep. And again, we go over this whenever anybody's doing this. Several different ways. Yeah, it's like Will Ramsey from Faith Forgotten once said, you can stick weld everything you do with a motorcycle. It's just going to be ugly. So you can, a lot of guys will MIG weld things, but in this process, they're going to TIG weld it. And it's tungsten inert gas. It's a process where you're actually going to be introducing metal while you're welding. It's cleaner. It doesn't splatter. Produces to a degree less heat than MIG welding. It's just
a lot more controllable.
Yeah, it's a cleaner process. So it is the predominant way that everything is welded now. Unless you go to big factories, now they're plasma welding everything, which I think is fascinating, which I guess we'll be doing in 10 years. But I don't know.
Just be another machine I got to buy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, you want everything to be clean when you TIG weld. You don't want any contaminants on the material, so they've got this really clean.
That's really interesting, the bead on the back side. Can anybody see that? I guess if you look through, you can see the heat coming through the fender.
See on the smoke rising?
That's the inside of it. And you can see how, if you can see where I'm at right now, you can see the bead coming through the back side. So when it's done, we'll just surface grind that off. And what we do is we grind that off to make it smooth for guys. For one, it helps a guy out that doesn't maybe have a big grinder in his house. But for two, you know, it lets us control also that fender's going out and somebody's not grinding too much on it and getting it to where it's not structurally sound anymore.
Right. Well, and just a kind of, you can start determining whether or not parts you get are welded well, because what you're going to look for is you're going to look for this kind of this rainbow discoloration that is consistent all the way up. If it's fat and thin and fat and thin, sorry, Chris, you're going to know that your welds just weren't consistent all the way along the seam. And so when you're looking at parts that are raw parts, you can start doing that. You're going to want to look for a rainbow that's a consistent thickness all the way down the center of the weld, or on both sides of the weld. You're a good welder, Chris. You're a good boy. You do good boy. If anybody's got any questions about any of these processes while we're doing that, we do have a microphone. You're welcome to ask questions of Brother Patterson. If you've just joined us on Facebook Live, or you're kind of wondering what we're doing, we got Pat Patterson from Led Sled Customs. Right now, he has Joe, his right-hand man, welding up one of their fenders. Pat has been walking us through how they spin fenders and create the fenders that they sell. One of the things that I also want to point out about your fenders is what does this fender sell for?
We sell the fenders for $150.
$150. Now you've just watched the process that it takes to make a fender, to spin it, shape it, weld it, and get it ready for sale, and it's $150. So when you start going, well, $150 for that fender, you got to consider the amount of time that it takes to get that there. Now, I don't know what your shop rate is, what the going shop rate is. What is the going shop rate in Ohio for a motorcycle shop? $80? 100? Do I hear 120? But so when you start thinking, okay, they didn't make that fender in 20 or 30 minutes. You know, I mean, it's a process. So if you, again, when you're getting something that a craftsman has made, that's a handmade part, that's made here in the United States of America, you have to consider what's gone into actually making that in terms of the value that that part has. I mean, honestly, if you charge the regular shop rate to make this fender, you'd have to sell that fender for $400 to make any money. But
well, and our fenders are custom too across the board. Like if anybody's, you know, building something, we have what I would call standard sizes that we build, like that fit stock tires, 180s, 200s, 240s, 250s, all the way up to the like 360s. We still do those fenders. But you know, if a guy calls us and he's like building something custom and he's got some weird tire, or he needs to fit between some frame rails, you know, and he's like, hey, can I get it at 6 1/4? You know, we're like, all right, what diameter do you have? Because we have different diameters also. But you know, 6 1/2, 6 1/4, guys can call us and we can do custom sizes for them also.
So, you know, and that's stuff that you just can't get every place. So, you know, you're gonna, when you're out there shopping and comparing kind of products that you want to buy, I mean, there's a difference in the quality of stuff that's made. I know that you and I were at a show just a few years ago. There was another shop and who was doing some things that were very, ironically, very similar to some products that you had. And you flipped it over and you were showing me, well, you can see where they don't even have a penetration on these welds. And so there's a difference in quality. So you're going to want to look. Last thing you want to do is put a fender on your bike, paint it, and have the thing go bad on you.
Well, and all these products, everything you're going to see here today, all of this stemmed from us riding motorcycles. You know, we never started anything with some big idea to build parts and try to sell them. Right. Everything came from riding motorcycles. So,
and other people wanted
all these fenders we have, these rims that we build, everything here is tried and true and ridden, you know, before it ever even hits the market.
And I can attest to the fact he rides hard because he also rides enduro in the woods. And I've never ridden dirt bikes before. I had my first street bike when I was 16. And so I never rode. And so he put me on a KTM 350?
300.
300.
That may have been the 350.
And he put me on the course that Truck, his 5-year-old son at the time, rides out in the woods. And I whiskey throttled it and
pretty quick too.
Yeah,
I thought you might ride a little longer than that, but
yeah, but I was pretty beat up. I just went back to drinking whiskey, which is what I do best. And Pat was like, "Well, you suck at that." And no, what he said is, "Yeah, you were kind of sitting on it like it was a Harley. I figured you were going to have a problem with that." And I was like, "I appreciate you giving me a heads up." And then I look at him, and he's got on a chest protector and his helmet and gloves and knee protectors and everything, and I'm out there in Dickies and a T-shirt. I was like, well,
I knew you were going to go fast enough to wreck, but it's just the way
it turns out I did. Turns out I went really fast for about
3 feet?
50 feet, probably. It was
50.
Maybe.
I bet it was at least 3.
Okay, maybe 8. But it was bad. So look at this.
My favorite part about the story is Chad riding up to see if you're okay.
Yeah.
And as you're laying on the ground, you're like, yeah. And he just turns and Rushka and takes
it's Chad, the guy that's out riding with us, just rides up and says, he sees me wipe out. I mean, I'm upside down in the woods. I've hit a tree. And he rides over and says, "You okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so he just rooster tails me, throws dirt all over me and goes out riding. I was like, "I'll get the bike up. That's cool, man." All right, what do we have, Pat?
All right, probably a really hot fender, I'm sure.
Do not put your
gloves
tongue
back
on.
there. Turn this on the side for me with your gloves, please. See, that looks really nice. It's burned in real nice. So if you can see this, like you see the grind on that fender, if you look at this weld, I guess it's not on.
No, yeah, they got cameras. They're putting it up.
But the weld is almost, it's not sunk in because then that would be undercut. The weld is just real nice and smooth to where you can see what we grind there is pretty much just almost cleaning it up. So the weld's not like ground down and diminished by any means. Yeah. And then this is going to be really hard. I mean, maybe afterwards you guys can check this out or whatever, but if you look up in here, you'll see almost all the way around the dabs from the outside on the inside of the fender, all the way around. So that's what we were talking about when we want full penetration on the weld all the way around to make it structurally sound.
So, good job, Joe. You're a fine welder boy. So, all right, so that's how we make a fender at Led Sled Customs. And how many of these fenders do you think you produce a year now? I mean, or how many, what's the most you produced in a year, do you think?
Man, I don't know.
Well, because you produce for other people too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that Led Sled does. So if you actually have a shop out there and you want your own brand of fender, if you've got your own design, they actually kind of ghost build fenders for several companies that market them under their name too.
Yeah, we've done fenders for a lot of big builders and companies since, I think we started spinning fenders in 2004. So since then, you know, we send pallets of fenders out to a lot of companies.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's how a fender is spun and put together and built, and you end up with this finished product that comes to you.
Another thing, if you're interested, if anybody's on Instagram, if you follow us on Instagram, I've been putting up more spinnings recently of what we do. Like we do wheel discs that cover spokes, you know, the hubcaps. There's some videos of us spinning those on there, and just seems like those have become really popular with people watching us spin. So I decided to start throwing up more videos so people can actually just see the process being done.
It's awesome. Now, but fenders isn't your only thing that you do. What else have you brought us that you're going to show us and kind of share with us how you get these things made?
Well, you know, we finally got to a point, you know, the fender spinning was pretty much what set us off, you know, in what we were doing, and really got my interest going in just manufacturing and building stuff. Because at first it was, I painted, and that's kind of how I got started at the shop, was I painted. You know, we do some frame mods and stuff like that. But fenders was kind of the first piece of equipment that we built in really producing or manufacturing a product. And then, you know, moving from there, where we got these blanks from, this company hydroformed aircraft parts. You know, a lot of the aircraft parts, you know, can't be stamped in steel. They have to be really precise and obviously safe. So we started making oil bags. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with hydroforming, but hydroforming is pretty much, it's like a press, but it has this big cylinder. I mean, these presses are huge. They have some presses down there that are as tall as that column. And they'll press like that. They could probably press that fender actually. But like these, what you do is you have like a steel, like this is one of our oil tank halves. And we'll have a male piece that has this shape on it. And what happens is they'll put this tool in this fixture and start out with a round piece of steel, just like we start with the fenders, say like an 11-inch blank. And they'll set it on top of this, and this big steel press comes down, and it's got a big, thick, like rubber bladder. I mean, it's thick. It's like this thick, and it's just full of hydraulic fluid. And what it does is it comes down, and it'll stop, and then it just covers this whole thing, and then they fill this bladder with fluid, and it just goes around this whole piece and compresses it to that tool. It's a really neat process to watch. And then what you end up with is, like if you did this backwards, it would be a perfectly round piece of metal, which is kind of odd to think that that came from, you know, a round piece of metal. Yeah. So anyways, that's another product that we build.
So that would be half of an oil.
Yeah, half an oil bag. Then what we've done is we've set up jigs to where we can trim all these, and then we obviously put them together. And we have like, I think 5 or 6 different ends that we've built. Like we even have one that we machined out a spade. So when it presses it, you know, you have a spade in the end of the oil bag. It's pretty neat. And then we have just some that are simple to keep the bikes clean. one that we did was really neat. One time we had a guy machine out an eagle in one of our tools.
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
and it would press out like it's so detailed because that bladder gets in all the crevices when it gets formed that the eagles you can see them really good.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So you cut that and then you just weld the two halves together.
Yeah, and then all the other parts, we ended up with CNC equipment, lathes, mills. So like even all of our caps and bungs that we put in our oil bags that we build all of our products with, we manufacture all of it in-house. Hey, Joe, you want to weld up one of these oil bags? You want to weld up one of these oil bags?
Oh, I got to get the go-go dancer screen again. Yeah. Wow, that was loud. Yeah. Jackie, while he's welding this up, why don't you share with us what Flo's Chop Shop has for him over there?
Thanks, Mr. Pat. If you're just now joining us or coming on over here to the Progressive Main Stage, which I strongly encourage you to do so, we are right now in the middle of another incredible presentation from our friends at Grease and Gears Garage. Your local hometown hero, Pat Patterson from Led Sled, is dealing in some tips and tricks on how to customize your bike. A great presentation from them up there. However, in the rest of the parlor, we are still up and running and rocking and rolling, and we are absolutely dishing up free awesome services in here. We've got free barbershop services in the back. Our in-house resident mechanic, Daniel, is also back there. If you'd like to ask him any questions about maintaining your ride, you're more than welcome to go chat with him. In the middle of our display, that beautiful BMW is this year's grand prize giveaway motorcycle. If you want to win that beautiful bike, I certainly don't blame you, but you have to get registered to win. And when you get registered to win that bike, by signing up with any of my girls with the iPads in their hands, I'm going to throw in a free hat just for doing so. Last but not least, up here by me in the sidecar, we're hooking you up with absolutely free, absolutely awesome, absolutely super duper lifelike, absolutely guaranteed to freak out your old lady or your boss airbrush tattoos over here. Come on over and get signed up for those airbrush tattoos. You do not have to be a Progressive policy holder to take advantage of all this free stuff. This is all just a little love from us to you for being members of our motorcycle family. But if you are a Progressive policy holder, come on over. Show me that policy card. I got more VIP goodies waiting for you over at our coffee station over there. So anywho, the fun isn't over yet. We got a couple more hours here at the big show. We've had a super busy day, but our friends at Grease and Gears Garage are going to be up there for a little while longer with this awesome demonstration with Pat and Pat Patterson.
Ta-dum, ta-dum. Clap. Wow, he was right on it.
I mean, that was amazing.
Sir, we're trying to work here. Could you keep moving? What the? Yeah, I'm not in the middle of anything. Okay. So, I get more work. Well, I was going to tell him that we have a specific wheel for tungsten, but
Is that the one? What's going on over here?
No, that's okay. We just that grinder there where you do our tungsten on. Oh, Chris.
These poor people have been listening to you talk all afternoon. You guys want some free stuff for sticking around?
Yeah. Shut up, Chris. Mark, you were right. Somebody's going to get punched before we get out of here. We've all been too nice to each other today. That was a pretty good shot. This is Chris Callan, the founder, owner, and editor, Cycle Source Magazine, the only truly grassroots magazine in the motorcycle industry. Soon to probably be the only motorcycle magazine in the motorcycle industry. Seem to be going away little by little. So, all right, Joe's going to be welding
bungs.
Yeah, I had to say woofer and tweeter earlier, and now you got to say bung. Why don't people
Really? Woofer and tweeter? I haven't said that in a while.
Woofer and tweeter. They were installing a Stage 2 boom audio system on a Road Glide earlier. Stage 2. That sounds like a medical thing. Is it a Stage 2? I think it is.
Sounds loud. Is it loud?
Well, I mean, it's called boom. It is loud. Those things are good. Those are really good products. While he's welding that up, you want to talk to us a little bit about wheels?
Sure. These are the Invader style wheels that we've been building now for 2 years.
Did you design that style wheel?
No. One of our buddies out of Columbus that's built these since the 60s had a meeting with me, and we were going to start manufacturing them for him and helping him out. So he pretty much took me to college in about 2 days so I could learn all his secrets and jigs and stuff that he had been using since the 60s. So we had to manufacture and build our own jigs and stuff to start building these wheels. So they're really interesting to build. We get the outer hoops. We've got a CNC spinning lathe also, and we've built the tooling to actually spin this part of the wheel. And if you look, these are powder coated, so it's kind of hard to see, but if you look in the middle, you'll see spinning lines kind of like what are on these fenders here. And we don't actually spin these in-house right now. I have a company up in Milwaukee spin them for me. It's just something they've done forever, and I really like their product, so we use them to do that. The hubs and everything else we manufacture in-house. The spokes, we started CNC cutting those because the rims are so nice and true when we get them and so consistent to where we can actually CNC cut those within tolerance. And it's not as easy as just putting the spokes in the jig and putting it on the rim. I mean, there is a little bit of sanding, and we use scales or shims to shim the wheel within. I like to get them within about 10 to 12 thousandths. I think that specs could be all the way up to 40. I mean, I like to spin them and not see the dial indicator move. I mean, there's enough do's and don'ts that I could probably sit here and talk an hour on what not to do and how to build the rims. But I think Chris has some. Do you guys have some on the? Can they see this? I don't think they can see the screen.
Well, we've got TV screens down here too. Yeah, we got pictures of those wheels.
Because a set of custom rims that we built for Chris when they were building the custom T-bike. Have you guys ever seen the twisted metal? Like when people twist metal. Chris came out to the shop and they brought all their tools out. And Joe and I had never twisted metal before, but they had the tools and we had the heat, and they wanted to build a set of rims. So they actually brought the metal out and we built a set of rims out of twisted metal. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was for the Twisted T giveaway bike.
Yeah.
And so those turned out really cool.
If I'm not mistaken, Chris isn't here. I think that there may be a video on the internet also of us twisting the metal.
There is. CycleSource.com. You can go to CycleSource.com and just hit up search Twisted T-bike, and there's a video of twisting the metal and actually making those wheels.
Yeah, and by the time they were done, we welded them up, and they polished them all and had them chromed, and they look spectacular. I mean, the twisted spokes on both sides. Is there a video up on CycleSource of us twisting the spokes and building these rims?
Heather's saying yes.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that on Facebook? And YouTube? Yeah, so if you guys get a chance, you should check that out. It's pretty interesting to just see the metal being twisted and formed, and they got right in on it and got a lot of good shots. But then to see that turn into a rim, an actual functioning wheel, is pretty neat.
Yeah, I remember when you were, well, I guess you just kind of started doing it, but I remember when you set them on a jig, and again, you think, well, there's a room where they do these wheels. Pat's building a bike here on the lift, and then he turns around on the workbench, and he's got the jig sitting there with the wheel on it, and he goes to welding it, and then he can turn around and mess with the bike a little bit. So it's fascinating that it really is kind of a cottage industry. But now the Invader Wheel, where did those things originate from?
Actually from Hallcraft. I don't know how familiar anybody is with Hallcraft back in the day, but they originally started building the Invader Wheel, and I don't know the exact year, but in the early '60s.
Now, and it's a popular style, kind of a retro style. I won't make Pat say this because he might not agree with me, but my experience when you find kind of the OG, the Invaders from the 60s and 70s. A lot of guys want to get those because they're original, and then they'll run them. I fear doing that with the old Invaders because, and I see some other builders agreeing with me, because there's a degradation that happens in that metal over time, and you don't know what's inside now, what's gotten inside the spokes or how they were made. The other side of it is Hallcraft made them, and just like anything else, a lot of guys were like, oh, I'm going to make some of those. I'll just make them at the shop. And so you're not always sure what you're getting. And so Led Sled, by offering these Invaders now and making them accessible, really is giving you a way to be able to have that retro look, but have it in a very safe way.
Well, and that's happens today too. You know, like you don't really know what you're getting. You know, I wouldn't say you just want to just start building wheels and selling them. You know, like I said, I feel responsible in building them and selling them because the guy who's built them and sold them forever taught me how to build them. You know,
Right.
So I know a lot that, you know, when he was telling me things, I'm like, man, I'm glad I never had to learn that on my own.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, information that somebody just telling you something, you can't buy that, especially when they have that much information and experience doing it.
Right.
But, you know, just even with these rings, you know, you talk about the old style, you know, those are 12 gauge spun rims. Like if you come up afterwards and grab one and feel it, you can feel the difference in just these wheel rings and how thick and structural they are just compared to, say, a normal spoke wheel that you may grab somewhere.
Right. And you make these any size people want, but your standard sizes are 16, 19, 21?
16, 19. Yeah, and 18s.
And 18s.
Yeah.
And you will make 23s. That's a special, more of a special order, because I need a 23, and so I'm going to have to special order that, but I'm going to have to. Pat, Led Sled will get everything out to you, unless you're his friend. And then you might wait a while. Once he knows you, then he tells you the story. Yeah, I got you on the board. You're on the board. You're on the.
That's one step closer.
That's one step closer. So, but anyway, now so he's got standard, and so that's why you go to Joe.
Yeah.
Joe's the one that answers.
They found the secret.
Yeah, they found the secret. So, I always think they're amazingly inexpensive as well for a custom-built wheel. What do your wheels sell for?
Trick question.
Jesus, could you just send Jen the next time? Joe, do you know what
They're on the
wheels sell for?
website.
They're on the website.
No, what are the
I think the
full set of wheels, like right at 11? I think a full set front and rear is $9.99 or something like that for if you buy a set.
Yeah, I was thinking that you can usually buy, depending on size or whatever, about $450 a piece, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
it's really hard to determine because guys order them in so many different ways. You know, this guy may order them and he only wants one flange on one side. So, you know, we don't rarely sell them.
Which is the other nice thing. Like, what you're seeing here is a 21-inch spool wheel, so that guy's obviously not going to run a brake. This gal looks like she's probably going to run a dual disc, or that's a rear wheel, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're going to, but you can get them in dual disc, single disc, spool wheel, really anything you want.
We have 1-inch bearings. We have 25-millimeter bearing hubs.
Yeah, so depending on your application, you can paddle make whatever you want. So, and now we got Joe back here behind the red curtain, revealing to you an oil tank.
Hold it up real quick so everybody can see it.
Here, I'll do it. Oh wow, yeah, that's very hot. So tell us what you're looking for when you're welding up an oil tank.
Pretty much just consistency. Every one of these that we weld, when we're done with them, we pressure test them. We have a system built up to where we put air in them and pretty much hold them underwater. You know, every one of them's tested to that quality to make sure there's no holes in them at all. Man, as far as I know, to this day, we've been building those since 06, I think. and I've never heard.
Never had one leak?
Nobody's ever called us and said they've had one leak ever, because every one, when they're welded, we make sure we pressure test them before we send them out.
Now, you manufacture your own bungs, you manufacture your own caps. Do you sell those on the website? Do you sell bungs and stuff, or do you just produce those for in-house? You going to leave that business to Bung King, or do you actually sell bungs?
To be honest with you, we're so custom. Like, a guy can call. We have people call us from all the time and have all kinds of conversation with us. There's, people are doing, this is custom. It's Led Sled Customs, So it's everything across the board, We'll have dudes that call us that think we only do one thing. We have guys that call us like, hey, I want 8 more inches added to that springer. Can you do it? And we're like, yeah. So we have guys that order oil bags that are like, hey, can you not put the bungs in for me? Because I got specific places I want to put them. So, we split them up and figure out a cost real quick and hook the guy up.
Right on. So you got the oil tanks, you do fenders, you do that. You do Springer front ends, beautiful Springer front ends, and I can attest to it. I built a bike. I had a customer that wanted a Led Sled bike, and I actually told the customer, you ought to just let Pat build you the bike. Pat was like, no, I'd rather sell you the parts than you build him the bike, and that turned out to be a really good idea. But parts are just great. I mean, I used your frame, your front end, your oil bag, your battery tray, used the whole thing, and man, I tell you, everything was just top notch, and still just, after all these years, still just good and working great. So, but you got a whole line of parts. You got one of your license plate brackets here. You want to show them that?
Yeah, we call this the fleeing and eluding license plate bracket. These are specifically designed to fit on a Sportster primary cover. Just when I started building the bike, I just wanted something smooth and kind of tucked in, so you can have that clean look on the back of your fender. We have them, they fit 04, the rubber mount style Sportsters, or pretty much, 86 through
2003, yeah.
Or 3, yeah. So they just bolt. This isn't a Sportster, but they bolt like right here on the primary, just to kind of clean it up. Some people don't have to run license plate lights, but if you do, you can run a little sticky up underneath your oil bag, and that's enough light to maybe keep the fuzz off of it.
Yeah. So when you're building custom bikes, you're really just trying to get them so that they'll probably be legal. I mean,
I never really worry about that.
In the middle. And so,
my favorite answer is, they're like, is that legal? I'm like, I hope not.
Yeah, exactly. I hope not. That's nice. Now, you also, one of the trickiest things that you do, and I know it's been copied a lot, but you actually have a system set up for it. You also do a kicker for Sportsters.
Yeah.
So you can convert your Sportster to a kicker bike, and tell us about, you make all of that in-house then.
Yeah, we machine all of that in-house. I don't know, probably since 03, pretty much when I started the shop, maybe a little bit before that. I just had this dream of wanting to make a Evo Sportster a kickstart. I don't know, I just liked kickstarting a bike. I thought it looked cool. There is a functionality to that if your starter goes bad, but that's just, I wasn't.
It looks cool
about that. I just thought.
Yeah, kickers are cool, man.
And so, and actually, if you look at Whiskey Bent, one of the first major bikes I built, I took a Sportster and cut the transmission off of it and put a 6-speed big twin transmission behind it, machined all my the stator and all that down to where I could run a 3-inch BDL belt drive on it, and I put a kicker on that. That bike was kind of built because I wanted a Sportster
with a kicker
on it, but at that point that was the only way I could really figure out how to get the job done. And then just over the years of my wheels turning and waking myself up at night with ideas and thinking, I finally just figured out a way to do it and build it. And we got with Andrew's main shafts, and I told them how I needed my main shafts built, and then we just started machining the parts in house and made it happen.
Pat has gotten some calls that his over the years that his kickers have gone bad. I got one of your kickers, and it's broken. And so Pat says, well, do you have it out of the bike? And they'll say, well, yeah, I got it out of the bike. And What do you ask them to do then, Pat?
Just mail us the part. I mean,
no, what you ask them to do is turn it over and see if it's got a number in it.
Oh yeah, all of our kickers have been numbered since day one. Because when I did build, the first kickers, they were working and they were functional. Because I would have never sold a bad product. But I'm like, there's room for these things to grow. So right then I started numbering every one of them. So everybody that ever buys a kicker, we've got their number. We know who bought it. And just throughout time, when we have upgrades, we'll contact those guys, or if they finally call us and they're having an issue, they all have a lifetime warranty with them. So when guys call us, I'll be like, hey, is it off the bike? I know when they bought it, and I'll be like, throw it in the mail and send it to me, because I've got 3 upgrades I'll do to it right now. Right now we've got them working to where they're pretty much, they're like CNC quality. Yeah. They're nice and crisp, longevity.
So if you end up with a kicker that's gone bad, and you turn it over, and it doesn't have a number on it, it was a copy. It's a counterfeit kicker, and so and that's unfortunately that happens.
That's the very first design.
Very first design.
So yeah, it's definitely going to wear out on down the road.
Yeah, so you got to be aware of that. But well, Pat, what's next for Led Sled? I mean, are you guys? I mean, are you coming out with a new part? Or you got a particular show that you're getting ready to do? Or are you building a new bike? What's going on?
Well, at this point, we just picked up a water jet that we're in the middle of trying to hook up. So we've got a lot of exciting new product we're going to be coming out with that. That's going to extend our production, the rate we can do things a little bit more efficient. And then a lot of new products that we had that we want to develop, that since we have our own water jet now, we can move forward with that. It's kind of hard, sometimes when you don't have stuff like that to prototype and build product, because, people that have that type of equipment, you have to pay to have it done. So when you're like, hey man, can you get me 1 or 2 of this just so you can prototype it? You've got a lot of money into it trying to get it done.
So doing R&D can get expensive.
My chair, my prop.
He's just, I don't know what he's doing.
Well, since you guys are just talking, we're going to steal Pat's Joe.
Oh, right.
Joe, you're about to be abused.
Hey, is there still pictures up? I wanted to show those pictures of us twisting the spokes.
Oh, yeah.
Do that?
Are those on there?
Does he have those pictures?
Yeah, throw that up. I don't really know what it is. Could be Mark in the shower or something.
Hey, that would have been us in the shower.
Can't believe they're making Joe work right now. Oh, here we go. This is the jig that we use to weld the spokes on, and this is after we've twisted them, and I've got them in the jig right now, welding these up. Now these were obviously custom. Well, that was fast. This is where I'm just kind of getting the ends of them close, because the thing is the jig was built to lay a square piece of metal in. Well, with these, they're twisted and round, and when you're twisting it, it's really hard to hold tolerances. You guys should go check this video out of us twisting it, because you're twisting the heated metal, so when you're done, the spoke may be, say, like this just a little bit. And then putting it in that jig, you're not putting anything square into it to weld it. So it's all custom on how you're doing it. But with that, what we did was, when I was done, I put the jig on a rotary table on my Bridgeport, then screwed it all up, and I was able to come around and touch off on all the spokes to get it centered up correctly to shim it into the rim.
Chris wants to say something now.
Well, this is something I've become kind of like famous for. I always lean on my buddies, and I come up with these harebrained ideas. So I saw that my boy from Led Sled is making these killer old style Invaders, and I'm like, hey man, I got this really cool idea for making a set of wheels. I said, me and Mark are coming up, and we're gonna like learn how to twist steel and figure this out and make wheels out of twisted spokes.
In what, a day?
Yeah.
He calls me. He wants to do this. Hold on. Was it a frame?
A frame, a set of wheels. I think we left with the oil tank,
and maybe
the fender.
A spring or two or something. In what? 2 days.
2 days we did all that work.
Yeah.
Listen, every quarter of the shop something was going on.
Up.
But we ended up doing it was really cool. We built our own jig. It looked like a big captain's wheel, and we locked that piece of square steel in. And while me and Mark were heating both sides of the steel with a rosebud torch, Pat took that stuff and twisted it around and we made those twisted spokes. Once we got a dozen or so of them laying out on the floor, it was up to him to figure out how to put it together like a wheel. And if you've seen last year, all year through the magazine, we made a bike called the Twisted. A Little Twisted was its name, and it was a bike we built for Twisted T to give away. And man, that thing was awesome from start to finish. And it was those 2 days that we spent at Led Sled really set that bike up for a really unique look. Those wheels were incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 1-inch spokes I think took 2 or 3 of us on it.
And we broke your vise on the 2-inch square.
Yeah.
We did the
thicker
down
the
tube.
spoke, it got to where twisting it. They had 2 torches on it, and this stuff was glowing red, and it was still
2-inch square tubing. And a vise. It had to be a 75-year-old vise. It was like one of those.
Oh, no.
I found it off a guy whose grandfather got it.
It broke.
And we broke that thing right in half, man.
Kind of, I don't know if you can even see it, but that's one of the spokes that we're twisting right there. Can you see it, Keith? If Keith can see it, everybody can see it.
But we did most of that stuff through Facebook Live. So if you want to go back and check it out when you guys get home, go to Cyclosource Magazine on our Facebook, and you can go through our history of it. It was about this time last year. Go back and watch some of those videos of us doing that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and once again, if you check us out on Facebook or Instagram, I've been trying to put a lot more videos up of us just working and, just how we're building things, and you can see us working in the shop. So,
me and you were allowed outside together at the same time. Remember?
So,
Stipulations.
anything else you want to plug before we get you out of here?
No,
You building a new bike in the shop? What do you got going on in the shop? Are you building anything right now?
We're finishing up a bike right now for a guy in Colorado. There's always kind of a constant flow of bikes we're building.
Right.
We're building one. The next kind of special bike we're going to build, are you guys familiar with Fuel Cleveland? Mikey Revolt puts that on. We're building a bike for Fuel for Mikey this year. So, man, is that May? I think it's in May.
I think it is.
I'm really bad with dates, and I'm really bad at telling you what I'm doing next weekend. But yeah, that'll be the next real custom bike coming out of the shop. Will be at Fuel Cleveland this year.
Right on. Well, Pat, thanks for coming and sharing your knowledge and your product, and more than anything, I thank you for just being a true craftsman that's committed to making sure that stuff's still made here and made by hand and well made and safe for people riding badass motorcycles, man. So I appreciate it.
Man. Appreciate
Thanks for being with Grease and Garris today. Ladies and gentlemen,
guys.
Pat Patterson, Led Sled. I think these guys are going to abuse Joe a little bit. We had done a little segment earlier. This is the tank for War Pony. This is a detail piece that's going to go on it. And I think they're going to try to talk Joe into welding it to the tank. And Pat and I are going to go to the bar. So no.
I'm going to run down and get some metal real quick.
Yeah, run down and get some metal. You got to go to the post office?
Yeah, I got to go to the post office. And
Mark said you always went to the post office a lot when you worked there. So Chris, do you want to tell us what you're doing here? Because these fine folks weren't here when you did this the last time.
So earlier in the day, RJ and I got up here and we started making this piece of round tubing that we're going to use for the side of the tank here to make like a little design on the side of the tank, get some body into this. And we're going to start forming this into shape now. Joe's going to tack it on for us. Then we'll get to the other side of the tank. We'll make an additional one for molding the sides of the tank to give it that teardrop look without just paint. The thing that we're looking at right now is because the sheet metal on the tank is thin and we've made a nice, perfectly flat piece of round stock, we want to kind of form that onto the tank before we actually just start tacking it on.
Now, Mark's up here helping, so I know Mark and I have the same idea about how we do things. I saw him putting that on his leg.
I don't think it would be.
Well, yeah, we get some guys up here, and they use a thing called
square, or can that come out at an angle?
Tape measure.
You got a torch?
Yeah. Mark and I weren't raised with numbers. We were raised with beatings, and
you
so
can
we
tack
beat
this
things.
right here. Yeah. This is going to heat up so quickly. It's going to be hard, though, because that metal right there is so thin. We can try it.
We don't want to blow a hole in that tank.
You could warm up. We could try that just for the heck of it. We could tack this down, Joe.
Why can't you
and then
just
heat it with the
get
torch like you're saying, and we could probably make it work.
Just allow it to go down and tack it down.
Well, we got to turn the torch down.
As long as you don't blow a hole in it.
Yeah. We can try it.
I'd rather bend that piece of rod than and have it shaped and then weld it on rather than.
How about if we just concave that or no? How about if we just put
Now you're in our garage. This is what happens. There's 5 people, 3 different ideas about how to do it, and 2 people just want to go eat and drink.
Is that us?
That's us.
What do you do? Do you want concave or do you want to leave it straight? We'll just run it straight.
Chris made a whole rule for Pat Patterson and I on the Grease and Gears garage stage. We're not allowed to drink on stage because it Sturgis.
Really low.
Chris bought us a bottle of Sailor Jerry.
He's gonna want to melt right through it, but.
Well, I don't think he bought it for us. He bought a bottle of Sailor Jerry, and the bar charged him there. Where were we? That was a broken spoke Iron Horse. They charged him for the bottle for how many shots were in it, so they charged a shot price. So it was like a $180 bottle of Sailor Jerry, and Chris and I drank it. Pat and I drank it, and Chris keeps telling the story that we drank it in 10 minutes, and we were denying that we drank that bottle that fast. And Chris said, "I have it recorded and it's time stamped. I can tell you how fast you drank that bottle." So now we're not allowed to drink on stage anymore, which we wouldn't do on the progressive stage anyway.
Torch down.
Ever.
You know what I'm saying? Just kind of get it warm so you're not catching into the metal.
So what have you decided to do, Chris? You're not mic'd up. This makes it really hard.
You want this one?
You don't have any more. Oh, you offered it, and he
I love actually being up here and not having a mic because it makes Pat try to figure out what we're doing and talk about it.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to follow the bounce and red ball with these guys. They don't ever take any of my suggestions. I'm like, all right, I'll just.
What's this? Thinner?
It's just water. Hey, Jackie, why don't you give us a little rundown on what Progressive Motorcycle Insurance is to offer the fine folks here in Cleveland?
Hey friends, if you're just now joining us, that is the Grease and Gears Garage up on that main stage, powered by Cycle Source Magazine. All these awesome demonstrations and all the work that they're doing on their custom bike that they will be finishing at the last stop of the International Motorcycle Show. However, here in the rest of the parlor, we are still up and running and rocking and rolling, hooking you up with all sorts of awesome free stuff in here all day long today and tomorrow. We've got Flo's Chop Shop at the back of this display, absolutely free barbershop services back there. Our in-house resident mechanic, Daniel, is back there as well with that Yamaha. So if you've got any questions about maintaining your bike, changing oil, changing spark plugs, fork seals, fork oil, whatever you got, head on back there and feel free to pick his brain. He'd love to help you out. In the middle of our display, that beautiful custom BMW is our current grand prize giveaway motorcycle. So take a moment, get yourself signed up to win it. We're going to be giving that away at the end of our 7th stop of the International Motorcycle Show next month. To enter to win that bike, just snag any of my beautiful progressive girls with the iPads in their hands, get yourself registered to win that bike, and I'm going to throw in a free hat. Those baseball caps over there are my giveaway for signing up for that great contest. So you're not going home empty-handed, and you're going to win a free bike, right? So make sure you take a moment, get yourself signed up. Last but not least, up here at the front of the display, right here in this sidecar, we're doing super awesome free airbrush tattoos in here. And if you're a Progressive policyholder at the coffee station, we've got your VIP gift waiting for you. So head on over there, flash me your policy card, and we got more good stuff waiting for you back there. It is all awesome. It is all free. It is all absolutely courtesy of Progressive Motorcycle Insurance.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thanks, Pat.
We are still trying to decide the best way to do this accent piece of rod on the side of the tank. Again, you know, Grease and Gears Garage, the reason we do this is A, so that you get a sense that you can have some flavor of what it looks like for American craftsmen to do their work. But the other thing is to hopefully inspire people to say, well, I probably could do something custom to my motorcycle. And it doesn't matter what you're riding, if it's a BMW, a Yamaha, a Suzuki, a Harley. You could make yourself a seat pan for it, and make yourself a seat. You could add some custom touch someplace on your motorcycle. So we just want to inspire people to be able to do some things that make the motorcycles your own, and set them apart from the others. So this particular tank, we're huge into choppers. That's what we do. And kind of the classic definition of a chopper is that you're cutting stuff up, you're cutting stuff off, and you're using found items, to be able to build the bike. This particular tank was one that when Chris went to pick up the frame at Paco in Reno, Nevada, he saw this tank laying over in a pile of sheet metal, scrap sheet metal. They said, what are you doing with this? And they said, well, it's just a tank we were trying to figure out how do you do a fuel pump on the bottom of. So what are you going to do with it? And he said, well, we're just throwing it away. It's just scrap metal. So Chris, picked it up, and he's going to do some custom touches. He's going to have a really super custom tank on his War Pony when we get the bike finished. So found items, anything like that, it's just about having fun and trying to figure out how you can do some cool stuff as well. So I think Joe's getting that pretty close, isn't he? If you stick weld that, you can just fill that gap in. Pat Patterson, I thought you said you wanted to help. He said he wanted to help, and then he walked away. These kids these days, I tell you, darn kids, why I oughta. It might be getting close enough now that if you started to weld it, that heat would run up the rod and would relax it. They never listen to me, though. They never listen to me. Do I look that? Don't answer that. They never listen to me. I don't know why. I'll just sit over here. Just sit over here and be quiet. They're going to mess it up. I have realized that working with just other builders doing this Grease and Gears Garage, I'm a one-man show at my shop in Iowa, it's in Central Garage. And working with other builders on the stage, we all do things differently, but I realize I do things. I was raised in eastern North Carolina. I mean, we were dirt poor. I mean, I am white trash. I do everything the white trash way. I mean, I don't have fancy tools or anything else. But I tell this story all the time. The old man that taught me how to do sheet metal work, within 100 yards of his shop, we'd take a piece of metal and a hammer, a framing hammer, and we'd go find the shape that was closest to the one that we wanted to make, and we would beat it out on that. And that's how he taught me how to. He didn't have a sheet metal brake, and so, but we had several pickup trucks that were sitting around, so we'd use the tailgate on a pickup truck as a metal brake. I mean, so, my oldest son's 25. I think he keeps Snap-on and Mac tools in business. He's a diesel mechanic, got all the fanciest tools in the world. He comes to the shop and he says, man, I know you do it, but I don't know how you get anything done in here with this stuff. And I'm like, well, you give me a hammer and a pair of pliers, I'll make you something. RJ's over there looking like, man, he's going to beat that thing so far out of shape, I'll never be able to do it. Aren't you glad you came to the show today, Joe? All right, it's perfect now. Look at that. It's getting there, isn't it? RJ, what are you eating? You got a big old thing. What do you keep sticking in your face over there? Oh, pretzel. I don't know what it was. I'm getting hungry. We're going to get wings at that bar. Huh? Oh, you're going to ride the Ferris wheel? Oh, man, I want to ride the Ferris wheel. I can't go. Chris came up here. We're all going to ride the Ferris wheel? Chris, they're going to ride the Ferris wheel. Everybody's going. I want to ride the Ferris wheel. You guys are mean. Stop looking.
Hey, the thing that gets me is I sat here and watched your whole thing. And then you go ride the Ferris wheel. Oh, Ferguson paid for it. Well, I'd ride too.
Have fun. I got to work for 6 more minutes.
So listen. You think the story I have about you and Pat Patterson in Sturgis is a story. Let me tell you the story about how Ferguson got 36 of us kicked out of a bar in Daytona.
That's a feat.
By more police than I've ever seen in Florida in one place at one time. No, I won't tell that story, but it really happened.
Well, my favorite rally story, my uncle and I used to go on rides all the time. We were out in Sturgis, and was my little boy, he's 19 now, but when he was about 4 or 5 years old, he was really into swords. And we went to Sturgis, we were staying in Deadwood, and they were selling, there was this guy that made knives and swords, and he was down in a basement of one of the buildings in Deadwood selling them. So we were drunk, my uncle decides he wants to buy my son a sword. So he buys him a clapboard, which is 48 inches long, not counting the handle. And so I'm Pat, my uncle's Pat, my grandfather was Pat, we're Irish, right? So there's an Irish bar up the street down in the bottom, and so we drink all the way up to that bar, and I'm carrying this sword around because it's heavy. He got tired of carrying it. We go in that bar, and the bartender tells us, you can't have that sword in here. And I said, well, yeah, we can. And we start drinking, and he says, no, you can't have that sword in here. You got to get it out of here. And my uncle looks at me and says, what do you think? And I looked at him, and I raised the sword up. I said, I think he's English. And next thing I know, there's 6 policemen around me, right? And they got their hands on their guns. And my uncle's standing there, Pat. He talks like Joe Pesci. He's from Chicago. He says, so what you gonna do now, funny guy? What do you think of them? I said, I think they be English too. And I raised the sword, and they all pull their guns out. And I'm like, they're gonna shoot me. But I didn't care. I had a big sword. But anyway, the police were nice. They took us back to our hotel up the road, and they put us to bed. They made us go to bed. It was like we were children at Sturgis. And this really nice female police officer walks us up to our room, and she opens the door, and she says, you two go in there and you sleep it off. When you come back out, no more playing with a sword. We're adults, right? So we were like, yes, ma'am. We just went and slept it off. We just went to bed. So it's hard to get kicked out of bars in Sturgis. It's really hard. Have you ever been to Sturgis? You go to Sturgis, right? She going this year? Addie? I don't know. You took her to the party, that terrible party last night. Austin Andrella from Austin Martin Originals, he and his daughter Addie have built a Trail 50 that's over here in J&P Cycles Ultimate Builder Custom Bike Show. And he's got her, did you see her? She's at the party last night, sitting on the couch. She's 8 years old, drinking a beer.
And there I am telling everybody what a good father he is.
Yeah, and I'm telling everybody what a good father he is, and I walk in. So I ask her if her father's there. I don't know where he was. He's off doing something nefarious. Left her with Scott Holbrook from Simpson, thinking that was safe.
See, this is the difference between stuff that we do and watching somebody that really knows what they're doing with metal. I told you guys earlier, like in the week when we started showing you how we made these panels, that there's people that really understand how metal moves, and Joe is one of those people. So he's taking his time and making sure that thing is really contoured and touching everywhere before he even gets started on it, where I'd have probably just went at it with some heat and pushed it, shoved it in there, and then I'd have ground everything that was uneven.
Yeah, that's what I'd have done. Well, he learned from the best. Well, Pat Patterson taught him everything he knows.
There's a lesson there, too, because neither one of those ways is right or wrong. One of them has a way better finish. When he finishes out with this by taking his time early on, it's going to be a lot easier to take that the rest of the way to paint, where if you don't do the work to start out with, you have more on your hands at the end to get a nice finish.
And you'll be able to tell the difference because then you'll do the other side.
No, actually, Joe's coming back tomorrow.
Oh, is he coming back tomorrow? Get him to do the other side, too.
Man, I just realized that means we're going to have to do this right.
Yeah. Yep. There's a cost to getting help with half a project. The other reason why it's important on this to have this contoured and really fit nicely is because we're going to TIG weld it, and when you TIG welding is a great way to weld, but it does not like gaps. You don't use TIG weld to fill a gap ever. It just doesn't like it, and so you really have to have and you always do, whether you're MIG or TIGging, you always want to have your pieces as tightly fit as possible, but with TIG welding, you for sure don't want to have any gap. We're coming up on our time, Chris. We're there, 6 o'clock. Folks, Grease and Gears Garage was allotted until 6 o'clock, so if you're with us on Facebook Live, appreciate you being with us. We're going to be back tomorrow. Jackie and the Progressive crew have a lot of really cool stuff back behind you at Flo's Chop Shop, and you're welcome. We're going to be up here working, so you're welcome to continue to watch and stuff. But for Grease and Gears Garage, we thank you, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Well, put your